April rain drummed against the windows as I made my morning tea. Riverside was always generous with rain, especially in the spring when the river seemed to choose to share its water with the sky. I watched the droplets collect on the glass and slowly drip down, forming whimsical patterns. How many such rainy mornings have I spent in this house I cannot count. My name is Earl Thompson, and in 3 days I will be 73 years old. For 35 years, I taught history at Riverside High School. For 35 years. I explained to children the beauty of the past and its lessons. Now I am retired, and my days are filled with a quietness that I used to appreciate so much. But now, sometimes, I do not know where to get away from. My tea, always English breakfast, no sugar with a drop of milk, had long since gone cold. But I continued to sit by the window, watching the rain and going over my to-do list for the day. Groceries, cleaning, maybe the library, weather permitting, the usual chores of an ordinary Tuesday. But somewhere on the edge of my mind, the thought of my upcoming birthday was throbbing. Would I be celebrating it alone again? The ringing of the phone snapped me out of my musings. The number was unidentifiable, but I answered it anyway. At my age, every call could be important. Mr. Thompson. It was an unfamiliar female voice. This is Patricia from Riverside Elegance Beauty Salon. I am confirming your appointment for tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. I did not make an appointment at the salon. I was about to tell her that, but something stopped me. Why not maybe a little change was just what I needed before my birthday? Yeah. Sure. I said, I will be there tomorrow at 10. After the call, I went up to my bedroom and opened my closet. Most of the clothes were practical, discreet. The clothes of a history teacher used to restraint. In the far corner hung the green shirt Helen had given me for our last anniversary. To match the color of your eyes, she had said then. I pulled the shirt out and held it up to me, looking in the mirror. The wrinkles around my eyes had gotten deeper. My hair had gone completely white, but my eyes, yes, they were still the same deep green color. Helen had died 12 years ago. A heart attack. Suddenly. We were making plans for the summer. And the next day I woke up a widower. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Sometimes it feels like another life. Our house held memories of her in every corner. Helen was a nurse, her hands healing, comforting, caring. The shelves she had painted, the chair she had restored, the garden swing, her latest project. Sometimes I talked to her, especially when the loneliness became unbearable. Do you think Helen? I asked aloud. Returning the shirt to the closet, they are coming to my birthday party. They are my son Jack, his wife Samantha, and their children, my grandchildren, 17-year-old Emily and 13-year-old Ethan. Jack is now 45. We have not seen each other in 4 months, not since Christmas, when I asked to join them for a holiday dinner. It had been an awkward evening of strained smiles and forced politeness. Samantha barely concealed her irritation. Jack was aloof, and the grandchildren were staring at their phones, occasionally looking up to answer my question with a one-word yes or no. When Jack was little, we were very close. I helped him with his homework, cheered him on at baseball games, and read him books before bed. Helen was sometimes jokingly jealous. Of course, you love him more. He is a carbon copy of me. In high school, the trouble began. Got involved with a bad crowd. His grades dropped. He got cocky. Helen and I worried, but we coped by channeling his energy. College changed Jack. He matured, became more responsible. He got a degree in business, got a good job. We were proud of him. And then there was Samantha. Beautiful, ambitious, driven. They met at work at Riverside Finance. The wedding was lavish with 250 guests, many of whom I had seen for the first time. Even then. Samantha made it clear that Jack's family was now her, not his parents. After Helen died, our relationship with our son became even more strained. Jack came to the funeral, helped with the arrangements, was there for the first few weeks, and then he went back to his life. I do not blame him. He has got a family, a job, but something changed. It is like the bridge that connected us has disappeared. Now our communication is reduced to rare phone calls and even rarer visits. Last year on my birthday, they did not even call. Samantha sent a text saying, "Happy birthday. Earl. Jack is in a meeting. Kids are at practice. Weekend will be busy. Call you soon. We never called." The rain intensified, and I decided to postpone going to the store. Instead, I started cleaning. I scrubbed every surface, vacuumed the carpets, washed the windows. The work helped me not to think about what. About the fact that my life had narrowed down to this house. That my only son seemed to prefer I did not exist. About my grandchildren growing up barely knowing me. Finished cleaning up, I pulled out the photo albums. Years captured on paper. Here is Jack taking his first steps. Here is his graduation. Here is our last family trip to the river when Helen was still alive. I tried to find the moment when it all went wrong, but I could not. Perhaps it happened gradually, day by day. Unbeknownst to me, the doorbell rang. Taking me by surprise, I was not expecting visitors. On the doorstep stood Margaret, my neighbor, and one of the few true friends I had left. She was holding a container of something flavorful. "I figured you would not want to cook in this weather," she said, handing me the container. Beef stew, my grandmother's recipe. Margaret is 75, but unlike me, she enjoys her position as a venerable old lady, as she calls herself. A widower like me, but with 4 children and 8 grandchildren who visit her regularly. "Come in," I invited, stepping aside. I was just about to have tea. We made ourselves comfortable in the kitchen. Margaret poured the tea, and I took out the biscuits I had baked yesterday. "Have you decided how you are going to celebrate your birthday?" she asked, as if reading my mind. "Hopefully with my family," I said. "All I have to do is convince them to come." Margaret snorted. "You know, you let them get away with too much. If I were you, I would have spoken my mind a long time ago, and you would be all alone." I sighed. "No. Margaret, they are all I have. You have Earl, and that is a lot." She squeezed my hand. Remember that after Margaret left. I stood at the window for a long time, watching her cross the street, shielding herself from the rain with an umbrella. Margaret was right. I had let Jack and Samantha get away with too much. Perhaps that was my mistake. I never demanded respect, never insisted on my place in their lives. I just waited, hoping they would remember me, determined to act. I picked up my phone and dialed my son's number. Jack did not answer, and I was about to hang up when I heard his voice. "Dad, is something wrong?" His tone sounded impatient, as if my call was an inappropriate intrusion into his day. It is nothing." "Jack," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "I just wanted to remind you that Friday is my birthday. I thought maybe you and Samantha and the kids could stop by." There was a pause, during which I could hear muffled voices. Apparently, Jack was consulting with Samantha. "Look, Dad," he finally answered, "we have a lot to do on Friday. Samantha has to be at the presentation of a new financial product. Emily has a rehearsal for the school play. And Ethan, I understand," I interrupted, not wanting to hear another list of reasons why they could not spare me the time. "It is no big deal, maybe on the weekend." Again, the pause. Again, the muffled voices. "Actually," Jack's voice suddenly became more determined, "we could stop by your place on Friday for a couple hours, say around 3. I could not find the words right away out of surprise. Really? That is wonderful. Jack, I am so excited. Maybe I will make something special. What does Ethan like? Is Emily still a vegetarian, Dad? He interrupted me, and I heard a familiar note of irritation in his voice. It does not have to be anything special. We will just stop by to congratulate you, give you a gift, and move on. We really have a lot to do on this day. Of course, I understand. I agreed quickly, not wanting to scare away this rare opportunity to see them all. Any time that is convenient for you? Okay. His voice softened just a little. We will be there around 3. After the conversation, I could not sit still with excitement. The family is coming for my birthday. For the first time in years. We will get together not because of an obligation, not because of Christmas or Thanksgiving, but just to celebrate my day. Despite Jack's words, I decided to make a treat. Nothing fancy like he had asked, but enough to show them how happy I was to see them. Vegetable casserole, Jack's favorite dish since childhood. Lemon walnut cake that he always asked for on his birthday. A fruit salad for Emily, though I was not sure if she was still on that diet. Homemade oatmeal cookies that Ethan adored as a kid. The next few days passed in preparations. I visited a barbershop for a haircut and soft styling that accentuated my natural white hair. You look younger, the barber said, and I let myself believe him. Bought a new shirt, forest green to match my eyes, as Helen would say. Tidied up the house, though it was clean enough as it was. Margaret came by to help with the cleaning and cooking, though I assured her I could do it myself. Let an old friend do her part, she said, wielding the rag vigorously. Besides, I am curious to see your ungrateful son and his wife, Margaret. I tried to sound stern, but I could not help smiling. They are not so bad. Of course, and I am not an old gossip. She snorted. Earl, dear, you are too kind to them. I always have been. The day I was born, I woke up early before dawn. The sun was just beginning to break through the clouds, promising a clear day after a week of rain. I took that as a good sign. After taking a shower, I put on a new shirt and dark blue pants. I applied light aftershave just a little, just to emphasize my presence. For the first time in a long time, I felt handsome. No, that is not the word. I felt visible. Visible. Alive. By noon, everything was ready. Casserole in the oven, cake on the table, salad in a large glass bowl, cookies on a plate. I arranged the plates and utensils. Not too formal, but pretty. In the center of the table is a small vase with the first spring flowers from my garden. At the beginning of the 3rd hour, I started to get nervous. What if they do not show up? What if Jack called at the last minute and said they had a change of plans? I was getting ready to be disappointed when I heard the sound of a car pulling up. They are here, my family, for my birthday. At exactly 3 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I took one last look in the mirror. A new forest green shirt, a neat haircut, light aftershave. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door. Happy birthday, Dad. Jack hugged me awkwardly, barely touching my shoulders as if he was afraid of getting dirty. He smelled like expensive cologne in business meetings. Hello, Earl? Samantha nodded, making no attempt to hug me. Her thin lips stretched into a smile that did not affect her eyes. She wore an immaculate gray suit and gold earrings, the uniform of a successful businesswoman. The grandchildren stood behind their parents. Emily, my 17-year-old granddaughter, kept her eyes on the phone, casting only a fleeting glance in my direction. Her dyed dark hair fell over her face, hiding the expression in her eyes. Ethan was 13, a lanky teenager with pimples on his forehead and a disgruntled expression. Come in. I am so happy to see you. I stepped aside, letting them into the house. Emily, Ethan, how you have grown. Emily mumbled something without looking up from the screen, and Ethan just shrugged as he walked past me. I felt a pang of disappointment. but I tried not to let it show. "Something smells good," Jack said, sniffing. "I told you I did not have to cook anything." "It is just casserole," I said, leading them into the living room. "Your favorite with vegetables and lemon cake. Nothing fancy." Samantha took a critical look at my living room. A little old-fashioned with framed photos, bookshelves, and cozy armchairs. You never decided to renovate. It was not a question, but a statement. "Jack and I could help you with a designer. It all looks so outdated. I like my house the way it is." I tried to keep my voice light and casual. There are so many memories in it. "That is why you have to change everything," Samantha murmured. But I pretended not to hear. We sat in the living room, Jack and Samantha on the couch, the kids in the chairs, me in the chair I had brought from the kitchen. The conversation did not flow. I asked about work, about school, about plans for the summer, getting one-word answers or evasive phrases. "Shall we come to the table?" I suggested when the pause lengthened. "The casserole should be ready just about now." At the table, the atmosphere improved a little. Jack praised the casserole. Emily reluctantly admitted that the salad was not bad, and Ethan even took a refill, albeit silently. Only Samantha barely touched her food, saying she was watching her figure. "How is school going?" "Emily," I asked, trying to make conversation. "Did your father tell me you were in the school play?" Emily took her eyes off the phone and looked at me like I was a talking piece of furniture. "Yes, I am playing Juliet," she answered without enthusiasm. "The premiere is in 2 weeks, Juliet." "How wonderful. I was genuinely excited. I would love to see it. Maybe you could take me with you." Emily gave her mother a panicked look, and Samantha intervened. "I am afraid that is not possible. Earl, we only have 4 tickets for us and for my parents. You know how close Emily is to Grandma Eleanor." "Of course," I nodded, feeling the color flood my face. "I understand." Turning to Ethan, I tried again. "And how is your baseball?" "Ethan, are you still playing?" "Not anymore," he answered, not looking up from his plate. "I am swimming now. You are. I did not know. That is wonderful. Your grandmother Helen was a great swimmer when she was young. Ethan got a scholarship to a summer sports camp," Jack interjected with pride in his voice. "Coach says he has a lot of potential. That is wonderful." I smiled at my grandson. "I would love to see you compete." Ethan shrugged, not looking up. "Next season?" "Maybe," Jack replied uncertainly. "Next season, always in the future. Never now." I felt the hope with which I had waited for this day slowly fade. "Who wants cake?" I asked, getting up from the table. "Lemon with nuts." "We are on a diet," Samantha said quickly, putting her hand on Emily's shoulder. "And Ethan needs to watch his weight because of swimming." "I could eat a piece," Ethan said suddenly, and got a disapproving look from his mother. "Just a small one." Samantha gave in, and then an extra workout. While I sliced the cake, Jack took me aside. "Dad, we cannot stay long," he said, lowering his voice. "Samantha has a meeting at 6, and we still have to get the kids home and change." I felt my heart clench. They had been at my place for less than an hour. "Of course, I understand," I said, trying to hide my disappointment. "I really appreciate you taking the time to stop by." When we returned to the table, Samantha was already packing her purse, clearly getting ready to leave. Emily was not looking up from her phone, and Ethan was picking at his cake with a fork. "We should go," Jack announced, clapping his hands together. "But first, a present." Samantha pulled from her bag a neatly wrapped medium-sized box tied with a ribbon. "Happy birthday." "Earl," she said with the same cold smile. "We picked it out as a family." I accepted the box, feeling a slight thrill. A gift is always an act of consideration, regardless of the contents. Maybe they cared about me, but they just did not know how to show it. "Open it," Jack said hurriedly, and I noticed a strange glint in his eyes. I carefully untied the ribbon and removed the lid. Inside was empty, a completely empty box without a single thing in it. I raised a perplexed look at my son, waiting for an explanation, thinking it was some kind of joke or that the real gift was somewhere else. And then they laughed, all four of them, loudly, unrestrainedly, with a kind of cruel pleasure. "You are just as empty." Jack laughed through his laughter. "An empty box for an empty man." "A perfect match," Samantha said, wiping away her tears. Emily was filming my face on her phone, and Ethan was giggling, repeating, "Empty, empty." I froze, holding the empty box, unable to believe what was happening. My family, my son, my grandchildren. Had they come here on purpose to make fun of me, to humiliate me on my own birthday? "Jack," my voice sounded strange, as if from far away. "What does that mean?" "Oh, Dad. Do not make that face." He was still laughing. "It is just a joke. You were always so serious." A joke. I felt something inside of me break. And at the same time, something else, hard and cold, rose up to take its place. "You came to my birthday party to give me an empty box and call me empty. Is this a joke? Do not be dramatic." "Earl," Samantha interjected, still smiling. "It is just family humor." Family humor. My hand squeezed the box so hard the cardboard crumpled. "We have different understandings of the word family." Jack stopped laughing when he saw something in my face. "Dad, do not take it so personally. We just wanted to have a little fun on me. I did not ask. I said, 'Come on, Grandpa,'" Emily said, still holding the phone at the ready. "Do not be such a drag." I rose slowly from the table, still holding the crumpled box. "I think you really should go," I said quietly, but firmly. "You have an important meeting at 6 o'clock. Samantha. I do not want to be late." They looked at each other, clearly not expecting that reaction. Maybe they thought I would cry, beg them to stay, or just swallow my resentment like I had done all these years. "Dad, do not be offended. Jack tried to take my hand, but I pulled away. It was just a stupid joke." "Yes, a very stupid joke." I agreed, looking him straight in the eye and very revealing. "Thank you for taking the time to stop by. I will not keep you." I walked them to the door with a stony expression on my face. No tears, no recriminations, just cold politeness. They were obviously discouraged. They were expecting drama, hysteria, pleading, but not this quiet, icy dignity. "We will call you this weekend," Jack said uncertainly. Standing on the doorstep, "Do not bother," I said, closing the door. I stood in the hallway, listening to their car start and drive away. Only when the sound of the engine finally died down did I let myself sit upright on the floor, leaning my back against the door. The empty box was still in my hands. Empty. They think of me as empty. An old, unnecessary, contentless man. 35 years of teaching, the thousands of students I have taught, the home I have created, the son I have raised. None of it means anything to them. I am nothing. The tears finally broke through, and I sobbed, sitting on the floor of my empty house on my 73rd birthday, holding an empty box. A perfect coincidence. As Samantha said, I do not know how long I sat like that. Maybe minutes, maybe hours. When the tears finally dried up, I stood up feeling the pain in my knees and back. Old age is not just wrinkles and white hair. It is also pain in my joints after sitting on the floor. I walked into the kitchen and mechanically began clearing the table. Uneaten casserole, almost untouched cake, dirty plates, evidence of my humiliation. I threw away the food, washed the dishes, wiped the table. The movements helped me not to think, not to feel, when there was no trace of the feast left in the kitchen. I went up to my bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. The mirror across the hall reflected an older man with tear-stained eyes, wearing a forest green shirt I had bought especially for a family reunion. Empty. The word rang in my head, echoing empty, empty, empty number. I am not empty. I am Earl Thompson, and I deserve better. Something changed inside of me. The hurt and resentment did not go away, but there was something else. Anger. A quiet, cold anger. Not like a flash of rage. It was a conscious decision not to let them treat me like this anymore. I pulled my day planner out of my nightstand and found a number I had not dialed in years. Michael Reynolds, the lawyer who had handled Helen's cases after her death. My lawyer. It was almost 8 o'clock in the evening, and I was not sure he would answer, but after the third ring, I heard his voice. Michael Reynolds speaking. Hello? Michael, this is Earl Thompson, Helen Thompson's widower. We have not spoken in years, but I need your help. It concerns my will and some other legal matters. Mr. Thompson, I could hear the surprise in his voice. Of course, I remember you. What can I do for you? I need to see you as soon as possible. Tomorrow. Perhaps tomorrow. He seemed to be checking his calendar. Yes, I can see you at 11 in the morning. Is it urgent? Yes, I answered, looking at the crumpled empty box I still held in my hand. It is very urgent. I want to change my will. And one more thing. Very well. Mr. Thompson, I will expect you tomorrow at 11. I hung up the phone and took a deep breath. Something had ended today, but something had also begun. I would no longer be a blank slate to be ignored, to be laughed at. They think I am empty, worthless. Well, I will show them how wrong they are. I tossed the crumpled box into the trash, took off my birthday shirt, and put on my house robe. This birthday was the last one I would spend waiting for their attention and love. I would not wait any longer. Michael Reynolds' office was located in downtown Riverside in an old red brick building. I walked up the steps, leaning on my cane. My knees hurt more than usual after sitting on the floor yesterday. On the glass door and gold letters that read, Reynolds and Associates, Legal Services. The receptionist, a young woman with a neat bundle on her head, greeted me with a smile. Good morning. What can I do for you? I am Earl Thompson. I have an appointment with Mr. Reynolds at 11. She checked her computer and nodded. Yes. Mr. Reynolds is expecting you. Please come in. Michael Reynolds had not changed much in the 8 years since we had seen each other. Still as trim with his gray beard, neatly trimmed. Only the wrinkles around his eyes had deepened, and he had changed his glasses for more modern ones. Mr. Thompson? He rose to meet me and shook my hand. I am glad to see you, though I am surprised to hear from you. Please sit down. I sank into the leather chair across from his desk and put my bag on my lap. Thank you for agreeing to meet on such short notice. Michael, this really is an urgent matter. You mentioned you wanted to change the will. Yes, and more. I unzipped my bag and pulled out a folder of documents. I need your professional opinion on a few things. I am listening to you carefully. I took a deep breath. Do you remember that when Helen died 12 years ago? She left me all of her property. Reynolds nodded. Of course. Mrs. Thompson was a very wealthy woman. In addition to your house and personal savings, there were shares in several companies, an investment portfolio, and a piece of land by the river. That is right. And you and I decided at the time not to disclose the full extent of the inheritance to Jack. He only knew about your house and a small bank account. That was your decision, Reynolds reminded me. You said you did not want the money to ruin your son, that you wanted to see him succeed on his own. I nodded, sinking into my memories. Jack had been 35 when Helen died. He was already working for a finance company, married to Samantha. Emily was 7, and Ethan was a toddler, 3 years old. Jack came to the funeral, helped with the arrangements, and supported me for the first while. It was then that I made the decision not to tell him the full extent of the inheritance. I remembered a conversation we had had a week after the funeral. Jack had stopped by to discuss financial matters. "Dad, I have been thinking about your future," he said, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee. "It is going to be hard for you to keep the house on your own. Maybe you should sell it and move into a smaller apartment," or he hesitated. "You could come live with us. We have a guest room." I knew that offer did not come easily to him. The guest room in their house was tiny, and Samantha was already planning to turn it into an office. "Thank you, son, but I can manage," I said. "Then I have savings and the house is already fully paid off. Besides, my pension should be enough for a modest living." Are you sure I could hear the relief in his voice? "If anything, you can always count on us." "I know." I smiled, and I appreciate it. And I did not tell him that, in addition to the house, Helen had left me nearly $3 million worth of stock, a $700,000 investment portfolio, and a piece of riverfront land that was growing in value every year. I decided to let Jack stand on his own 2 feet to succeed by his own labor. And then when the time came, all this would be his legacy. "Mr. Thompson." Reynolds's voice brought me back to the present. "Do you want to disclose the inheritance to your son now?" "No." I shook my head. "Quite the opposite. I want to change the will. I told him about yesterday's incident, the empty box, the words, the laughter, with every word of my story." The lawyer's face grew more and more somber. "This is outrageous," he said when I finished. "Your son and his family have behaved unacceptably." "Yesterday was not the first incident," I admitted. "Just the last straw. It had started much earlier, and I went back into my memories. When Jack was a baby, Helen and I had doted on him. An only child. Long awaited. Beloved. Helen taught him how to play soccer. I helped him with his lessons. We both worked, Helen at the hospital, me at school, but we always made time for our son. In his teens, the trouble started. Got mixed up with bad company, got cocky, skipped school. I remember the day the principal called Helen and me in and told us that Jack had been smoking marijuana in the schoolyard. "We could expel him," the principal said, "but given your reputation, Mr. Thompson, I am willing to give him another chance. I taught at the same school and felt humiliated. But for Jack's sake." I swallowed my pride and agreed to a trial period. At home, we had a serious conversation. "How could you do that?" Helen rarely raised her voice, but that day she yelled, "Do you realize that you have let not only yourself down, but your father as well?" Jack sat with his head down. "I did not mean to. It is just that everyone was doing it, and I and you decided to be like everyone else." Helen shook her head. "I thought we raised you better than that." Then I stepped in between them. "It is not what happened that matters. It is what happens next. Jack, you have been given a second chance. Do not blow it." After that incident, I spent more time with my son. I helped him with his homework, enrolled him in sports to keep him away from bad company. Helen worked late, often on weekends. We were expanding the house and needed extra money. I did all the heavy lifting, little by little. Jack got better. He graduated from high school with good grades, went to college to study business. Helen and I paid his tuition, though we could have used the money for ourselves. Maybe to travel, which Helen had always dreamed of. At graduation, Jack hugged me and said, "Thanks, Dad. I could not have done it without you." I was happy. My son had become a good man, educated, with a successful future ahead of him. The trouble started when he met Samantha. They worked at the same company, and she immediately made it clear that Jack's family was now her, not his parents. At first it was little things, forgotten invitations to family dinners, last-minute canceled visits. Then it was outright dislike. I remember at Ethan's christening, Samantha introduced her parents as grandparents, and Helen and I as Jack's parents. It hurt, but I kept silent. Not wanting to mar the celebration, Helen was taking her son's estrangement more easily. "Let him go. Earl," she said. "He has his own life, his own family. It is natural." But it was not natural for me. I gave Jack everything, my time, my love, my strength, and in return, I got less and less attention. After Helen died, things only got worse. Jack's visits became even less frequent, his phone calls shorter. Samantha no longer hid her impatience when I showed up at their house. The grandchildren following in their parents' footsteps became more and more estranged. There were good moments, the birthdays we celebrated together, the rare family dinners when it seemed like everything could still be fixed. But with each passing year, those moments became fewer and fewer. And then there were years of humiliation, forgotten holidays, canceled appointments, dismissive comments. "Dad, do you have to wear those old-fashioned clothes, Grandpa? You are so boring." "Earl, maybe you should not come to the school concert. There will be important people there. And there is the empty box. You are just as empty." "Mr. Thompson," Reynolds's voice brought me back to reality. "So, what exactly do you want to change in the will?" I straightened up in my chair. "I want to disinherit Jack completely." Reynolds raised his eyebrows. "That is a big decision. Are you sure?" "Absolutely. I do not want him or his family to get 1 cent of Helen's money anymore. They do not deserve it. So, who do you want to leave your estate to?" I pulled another document out of my bag. "Here is a list of charitable organizations: Riverside Teachers Foundation, the City Library, the animal shelter where I take in dogs for foster care. And also, I want to establish the Helen Thompson Memorial Scholarship for nursing students." Reynolds scrutinized the list, then looked up at me. "Legally, all of this is possible. You have every right to dispose of your property as you see fit. But let me give you some advice as a human being, not as a lawyer. Do not make such decisions in haste. Perhaps in a few days, when the pain of what happened has subsided a little, you will change your mind." I shook my head. "I am not going to change my mind. Michael, this is not an impulsive decision. It is the result of years of neglect and disrespect. Yesterday's incident was just the last straw." "Good," he nodded. "In that case, I will prepare a new will. But there is one more thing. Your son can contest it after your death, claiming that you were not in your right mind. What do you suggest I would recommend, including a clause in the document stating that anyone who tries to contest the will is automatically disqualified from any inheritance, even if the court takes their side? It would also be a good idea to have an independent medical examination to confirm your capacity. We will do everything necessary." I agreed. "There is one more question," Reynolds continued. "You mentioned that you want to change more than just the will. What else?" I took a deep breath. "The riverfront property. I want to sell it. It was Helen's favorite piece of property. She bought it the year before she died, dreaming of building a summer house for her grandchildren. We often discussed plans to spend summer weekends there, fishing, swimming in the river. After her death, I did not dare to do anything with the plot, keeping it as my wife's last dream: sell it." Reynolds was surprised, But you always said you were saving it for your grandchildren. Times have changed. Michael, my grandchildren have changed, too. Or rather, they have been brought up so that they do not care about their old grandfather and his gifts. I would rather use that money in other ways. May I ask how I want to buy a new house in another city? Maybe even another state. Start a new life. Reynolds leaned back in his chair, studying me with his gaze. You have really thought this through, have you not? Yes. I nodded. I stayed up all night last night thinking about it, and I realized I had had enough of being a victim. It is time to act. Well, he started making notes in his notebook. I will get started on a new will right away. As for selling the property, that will take time. We will need to assess its current value. Find a buyer. But given the location, I do not think it will be a problem. Riverside land is always a bargain. How long will it take probate? A few days? Selling the property? Maybe a few weeks or even months if we want to get a good price. What if we do not wait for a better price if we need to sell quickly? Reynolds thought. In that case, it might be possible to do it in 2 or 3 weeks. I have a few clients who might be interested, but the price will be below market value. That is fine with me. I nodded. The sooner the better. When the formalities had been discussed and I was about to leave, Reynolds asked another question. Mr. Thompson, do you plan to tell your son about your decision? I stopped in the doorway. Yes, Michael, but not right now. I want everything ready. The new will, the sold property, the money in the account. And then I will have a little surprise for my family. On the way home, I stopped by Margaret's. I needed my friend's advice and maybe her help. Margaret opened the door, dressed in a brightly colored robe with a face mask. Earl, she exclaimed, I was not expecting you today. Come on in, but do not make fun of my appearance. It is Beauty Day. We made ourselves comfortable in the kitchen. Margaret took off her mask, made some tea, and took out some cookies. Tell me, she demanded. From the look on your face, I could tell something was wrong. I told her about last night's humiliation, the empty box, and the cruel words. Then I told her about my visit to the lawyer and my plans. Good for you, Margaret said when I was done. I should have put them in their place a long time ago. But are you sure about the will? After all, it is your son, your grandchildren. I am sure, I said firmly. They do not deserve a dime. Let the money go to the people who really need it, and the new house. Are you serious about leaving Riverside? I am dead serious. There are too many memories here. Good and bad. I need a fresh start. Margaret stirred her tea thoughtfully. You know, my sister lives in Portland. It is a beautiful city. Mild climate, ocean nearby. She has been asking me to move there for a long time. Maybe we should both consider it. I looked at my friend in surprise. You want to go with me? Why not? Margaret shrugged. My children are all over the country. My grandchildren come once a year for Christmas. At my age, it is time to think about new experiences. Besides, she smiled slightly. I do not want to miss the show you are putting on for your ungrateful son. I laughed for the first time in 2 days. It will be an unforgettable show, I promise. We spent the afternoon discussing plans. Margaret suggested a dinner party, inviting Jack and his family over, ostensibly to reconcile, and then announcing the news. You should see their faces when you tell them you sold the lot and rewrote the will, she said, rubbing her hands together. Oh, I would pay for a ticket to that show. You will get a front row ticket, I promised. Just give me time to get everything ready. When I got home that evening, I sat in Helen's office for a long time, going through old papers. There were our family photos, documents, letters, the story of a lifetime. What would you say? Helen, I asked aloud, looking at her picture. Would you approve of my decision? Helen had always been kinder than me, more tolerant. Perhaps she would have advised me to forgive, to give it another chance. But I knew there were times when I had to think about myself. And that moment came. I started making a list. What to take with me into my new life. What to keep. What to give to friends. It was a strange but liberating feeling, like I was shedding the weight of the past, preparing to leap into the unknown. A plan for revenge began to take shape in my head. I would give Jack and his family what they deserved. Nothing. An empty box. And that would be my best revenge. It has been 4 weeks since my birthday. 4 weeks filled with meetings with attorneys, appraisers, realtors, and bankers. 4 weeks during which I had not returned Jack's infrequent calls, and he had only called 3 times, both times briefly, and without much enthusiasm. The Riverside lot had sold surprisingly quickly. The company planning to build a luxury cottage village there had been eyeing the land for a long time, and had offered a good price. The money was already in my account, waiting for its time. A new will was drawn up, signed, and certified. I underwent an independent medical examination, which confirmed my full capacity. Under the new orders, all of my assets, house, bank accounts, stocks, and investments were to be transferred to specified charitable organizations upon my death. Jack and his family received nothing. I had already found a new home, a small but cozy cottage in Portland, just 2 blocks from Sister Margaret's house. The offer to buy was accepted. All that was left was to sign the papers and wire the money. Everything was ready for the final act of my little drama. Friday night. I called Jack. He did not answer right away. And when he finally picked up, I could hear the surprise in his voice. "Dad, is something wrong?" "Hello?" "Jack." I tried to keep my voice normal without a hint of the tension I was feeling. "Nothing is wrong. I just wanted to invite you all to dinner on Sunday." There was a pause. I imagined him glancing over to Samantha, silently asking her opinion. "Sunday." He finally said it. "I do not know, Dad. We have got a lot to do and the kids—" "It is important." "Jack." I let a little vulnerability seep into my voice. I want to apologize for my behavior on my birthday. I reacted inappropriately to your joke, and I have some news I would like to discuss with you in person." Another pause. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head. He was trying to decide whether to waste a Sunday night with his old father. "Okay," he finally said. "We will come over 7 o'clock." "Okay. 7 will be fine. I will make dinner." "Do not bother, Dad. We will eat before I insist," I said firmly. "It is going to be a special dinner." After the conversation, I called Margaret, who rushed over immediately, excited about what was to come. "Do you think I should wear the black suit?" she asked, going through the contents of my closet. Like at a funeral that... After all, it would be the funeral of their hopes for an inheritance. I could not help but smile at her enthusiasm. Black would be too dramatic. Wear something casual. "I do not want them to suspect anything until the last moment." "You are right," Margaret agreed, putting the black suit aside. "The element of surprise is everything. We spent Saturday getting ready for dinner. I wanted it to be perfect, not to please Jack and his family. But for me, this was to be my triumph, my last performance on the stage of their lives." By 7 o'clock on Sunday evening, everything was ready. The table was set with a white tablecloth with the finest china Helen and I had received as a silver wedding present. In the center is a vase of fresh flowers. Roast chicken in the oven, mashed potatoes, salads, homemade bread, cherry pie. Everything Jack loved as a kid. The last dinner I ever cooked for them, Margaret arrived at 6, dressed in a simple beige outfit, but with bright makeup and a new haircut. "You look gorgeous," I said. Hugging my friend, "I would have bought a new suit for such an event," she replied with a twinkle in her eye. It is not every day you see justice done. The doorbell rang at 7 sharp. I took a deep breath, adjusted the collar of my shirt, and went to open it. Jack, Samantha, and the kids were standing on the doorstep, all dressed too well for a casual family dinner. I guess my words about important conversations had made them take the visit more seriously than usual. "Come in." I smiled, stepping aside. "I am so glad you could make it." Jack hugged me awkwardly. Samantha nodded, and the children mumbled inarticulate greetings. When they entered the living room, they saw Margaret invisibly tensed. Jack raised his eyebrows. I did not realize we would have other guests. "Margaret is my closest friend," I replied, "and she is here at my request. Please have a seat. Dinner is almost ready." We sat down at the table. The conversation did not flow. Despite my attempts to create a relaxed atmosphere, I asked about work, school, plans for the summer, only to receive one-word phrases or smiles. They were clearly waiting for me to get to the point. My apologies. And big news. After the main course, before dessert, I decided the moment had arrived. "Jack, Samantha," I began, blotting my lips with a napkin. "I invited you here today because I really wanted to apologize." Samantha visibly relaxed, an indulgent smile appearing on her face. Jack nodded as if to say, "Well, finally. I have to apologize for letting you treat me disrespectfully all these years," I continued, looking them in the eye, "for not putting you in your place when you first showed ingratitude, for putting up with your disrespect for so long. It is my fault. And I admit it." Samantha's smile froze, and Jack frowned. "Dad, what are you talking about if this is about the box? It was just a joke. We thought you would understand." "Oh, I understood." I nodded. "I understood a lot more than you think. I realized that I mean nothing to you. I am nothing in your eyes. And you know what, I have made my peace with that. But there is something else you need to know." I got up from the table and walked over to the secretary, where I pulled out a file folder. "Jack, did you know that when your mother died 12 years ago, she left me all of her property?" "Yes. Of course." Jack nodded. "The house and some savings. Not only that?" I shook my head. "Your mother was a very successful woman." Jack. "In addition to the house, she left me nearly $3 million worth of stocks, a $700,000 investment portfolio, and a piece of land by the river. All this time, I have kept the full extent of my inheritance from you. Do you know why?" Jack stared at me wide-eyed, clearly shocked by the information. Samantha stepped forward, her face eager with interest. "I wanted you to succeed on your own. On your own," I continued, "and I plan to pass it all on to you and your children in time. All this time I have been living modestly, saving even though I could have afforded so much more because I thought it was right to preserve my inheritance for the next generation. Dad." Jack started, but I raised my hand to stop him. "Please let me finish. After your gift to me on my birthday, I thought long and hard, and I made a decision. I sold the riverfront property." What Jack shrieked, jumping up from his chair. "You had no right. My mother bought it for her grandchildren. I had every right," I replied calmly. "The plot of land was registered to me, and I got a very good price for it. $1,500,000. Oh my God." Jack clutched his head. "Where did that money go? I donated half of it to the Riverside Teachers Fund and the city library. Part of it went to the Helen Thompson Scholarship for nursing students. And with the rest of the money, I bought a new house in Portland where I am moving next month with Margaret." I nodded toward my friend, who was watching the scene with ill-concealed amusement. There was silence in the room. Samantha sat pale, her mouth open. Jack looked as if he had been punched in the throat. Emily looked away from the phone for the first time all evening and stared at me in disbelief. Only Ethan seemed more puzzled than shocked. "But that is not all. I continued pulling another document out of the folder. I have also changed my will. According to the new version, all of my assets, the house, bank accounts, stocks, and investments will go to these charitable organizations upon my death. You will receive nothing. You cannot do that, Samantha shrieked, jumping up from her chair. It is unfair. Unfair? I raised an eyebrow. Was it fair to ignore me for years? Was it fair to make fun of an elderly man on his birthday? Was it fair to raise your children to disrespect their grandfather? We never, Jack started, but I interrupted him. Do not lie, Jack. Not to yourself, not to me. You have been doing this for years. Little humiliations, disparaging comments, canceled meetings. You have made me realize I am nothing in your eyes. Now I am letting you know you are nothing in my will. Jack changed tactics. Dad, listen. His voice became soft, ingratiating. We have really behaved wrongly. That joke with the box was stupid and cruel. We have realized that. We want to make amends to be closer to you. Give us a chance. It is too late. Jack. I shook my head. I have given you thousands of chances over the years. You blew them all. This is all because of you. Samantha suddenly turned to her husband, her face contorted with anger. Your stupid idea with the box. I told you it was too much. My idea, Jack was outraged. You were the first to say you did not want to spend on a gift. But I was not the one who came up with that stupid joke. Samantha was already yelling. $3 million. $3 million. And you blew it. Do not you dare blame me. Jack was yelling too. You are the one who always turned the kids against Grandpa. You are the one who always found reasons not to visit him. They continued shouting at each other, oblivious to my presence. Their real faces, their true natures, showed in all their glory. Petty, greedy, selfish people, ready to blame each other at the first opportunity. Emily began to cry, and Ethan sat with his head down, clearly wanting to fall through the earth. I felt sorry for my grandchildren. It was not their fault their parents had raised them like that. Enough. My voice suddenly, firm and loud, silenced them all. I can see right through you. You do not care about my well-being. You only care about money. Well, now you know there will not be any ever. You will regret this, Samantha said through gritted teeth. We will contest the will. Prove you are out of your mind. You can try. I smiled. My lawyer had thought of everything. There is a clause in the will that anyone who tries to contest it is automatically disqualified from any inheritance, even if the court sides with them. In addition, I have had an independent medical examination confirming my full capacity. All the paperwork is in order. Samantha was choking on her anger. You old Jack finished for her, looking at me with hatred. That is what you are. Always have been controlling, manipulative, demanding. Mom put up with you out of pity. She told me she regretted her marriage. It was a low blow and Jack knew it. He was trying to hurt me in my heart by tarnishing the memory of my marriage, but I was ready. Your mother would never say such a thing. Jack. She loved me to the last day of her life, and I loved her. Our marriage was a happy one. The only thing we both regretted was how different you were when you met Samantha, how you let her destroy our family. Do not you dare blame me, Samantha shrieked. You are the one who is always prying into our lives, always trying to tell us what to do. I just wanted to be the part of your life, I said calmly, to be a grandfather to my grandchildren. But you made that impossible. And now we are all reaping the rewards. Let us go. Jack grabbed Samantha's hand. We are leaving. Kids in the car. Emily, still crying, got up and headed for the door. Ethan followed her. But halfway out, he stopped and turned around. Grandpa. His voice sounded uncertain. Yeah, I was not laughing at you. Dad said it was the right thing to do. "Ethan!" Jack yelled. "Get in the car now!" The boy gave me one last look and walked out. I heard the front door slam, then the sound of the engine starting. They drove off. Margaret and I were left sitting at the table, surrounded by our uneaten dinner and a heavy silence. "What a show," Margaret said at last, pouring herself some wine. "They showed their true colors." "Did they not, yes?" I nodded, feeling a strange emptiness inside completely. "Are you all right?" Margaret looked at me carefully. "Your son said some terrible things." "I know Helen never said those things to him." I shook my head. "Jack just wanted to hurt me. And he succeeded, but not as much as he had hoped." We sat in silence for a while, then started clearing the table. The work helped me not to think, not to analyze what had happened, but when the last plate was washed and put away, I sank into a chair and covered my face with my hands. "I have lost them. Margaret," I whispered. "I have lost them completely. They lost themselves." "Earl," Margaret put her arm around my shoulders. "You did what you had to do. You stood up for your dignity." Should I have? I looked up at her. Maybe I should have just kept my mouth shut, kept the appearance of family, and let them keep treating you like you were nothing. Margaret shook her head. "No. Earl, you did the right thing. Cruel, perhaps, but fair. They deserve this lesson. I hope it does them good." I sighed. "I doubt it. Do not think about them." Margaret stroked my arm. "Think about our new house in Portland, about walking in the parks, drinking coffee at sunset, meeting new people. Your life is just beginning, Earl, and it is going to be a good life." I nodded, trying to believe her words. A new life without the weight of unreasonable expectations, without the pain of neglect, without humiliation. A life I had chosen for myself. Margaret stayed the night at my house. We sat in the living room for a long time, reminiscing about the past, talking about the future, sipping wine, and listening to old records by Frank Sinatra. My wife's favorite singer, you know. Margaret said before we retired to our bedrooms. "Helen would have been proud of you tonight." "You think so?" I doubted it. She was always so kind, so forgiving. Kind, yes. Margaret agreed, but not weak. And she would never let anyone, not even her own son, treat her husband like that. She would be proud of you for standing up for yourself at last. With those words, she kissed me on the cheek and left for the guest bedroom. I sat in the chair for a long time looking at Helen's picture on the mantelpiece. Perhaps Margaret was right. Perhaps she really would be proud of me. I did not know if I would ever see Jack and his family again. I did not know if we could ever regain even a semblance of a relationship, but for the first time in a long time, I felt free from the weight of unfulfilled hopes and continuous disappointment. I went up to my bedroom, got into bed, and for the first time in many nights, fell asleep quickly and peacefully, without tears or regrets. Tomorrow would be a new day. The beginning of my new life. The next morning, after the memorable dinner, I woke up with a sense of lightness I had not felt in years. It was as if the heavy weight weighing on my shoulders had suddenly disappeared. The sun was shining warmly on the bedroom, promising a good day. Over breakfast, Margaret and I discussed plans for the next few weeks, getting ready to move, selling things we did not need, saying goodbye to Riverside. I decided to take only the essentials with me: a few boxes of books, photographs, favorite souvenirs, and a small piece of furniture. The rest I plan to either sell or give away. Do you think they will call? Margaret asked, spreading jam on her toast. Jack, maybe. I shrugged, but not right away. First, they will be angry. Then, they will think of ways to win my affection back. For money, of course, not for me. What about you? Would you pick up the phone if he called? I thought about it. My anger and resentment had not disappeared, but they were not burning sharp anymore. More like a quiet sadness for what could have been, but was not. I will take it, I finally said, but it will not change anything. My decision is final. Margaret nodded understandingly and changed the subject. I talked to my sister yesterday. She is thrilled that we are moving to Portland. She says the local climate does wonders for arthritis. We laughed and the day went on. Calls, plans, lists. I was so busy that I hardly thought about yesterday until the phone rang in the evening. Jack's name popped up on the phone screen. I took a deep breath and answered. Hello? Jack? Dad? His voice sounded strained. We need to talk. What happened yesterday? It was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. I raised an eyebrow even though he could not see it. I thought it was pretty clear. Samantha and I overreacted. Said things we did not mean. You were upset, too. Let us get together and talk about it. Jack. I tried to speak softly but firmly. I was not upset. I was completely calm and aware. Everything I said yesterday was true. I sold the property, changed my will, and I am moving to Portland. It is a done deal. But Dad, he said with a pleading tone in his voice, it is Mommy's inheritance. She wanted it to stay in the family. Your mother wanted her family to be close-knit and caring, her husband to be respected, her grandchildren to know their grandfather. None of those things happened. We can fix this, Jack insisted. Give us a chance. A chance for what? Jack. I sighed. To pretend to be a loving family until I die, and then take the inheritance. No. Thank you. I value my life more highly. A pause followed. When Jack spoke again, his voice had changed, colder, more calculating. I talked to the lawyer. He thinks we can challenge your new will, prove that you acted under the influence of strong emotion, or even someone else's. This friend of yours, Margaret. Are you threatening me with a lawsuit? I could not believe my ears. Your own father, I am protecting my family's interests. He countered. My children. It is their inheritance. Their inheritance, I said slowly, is the values you and Samantha have instilled in them. Greed, disrespect for their elders, a belief that money is more important than relationships. Congratulations. Jack, this is truly a valuable inheritance. You are going to regret this. He gritted through his teeth. We will make you change your mind. Goodbye. Jack. I hung up, my hands shaking. The calls continued over the next few days from Jack, from Samantha, even from Emily, who I suspected was acting on orders from her parents. I answered politely, but firmly refused to meet or talk about the inheritance. Their tactics changed from threats to pleas, from accusations to apologies, but the bottom line remained the same. They wanted money, not a relationship. 2 weeks later, when I was actively packing to move, Samantha showed up on my doorstep, impeccably dressed, a look of remorse on her face and a bouquet of flowers in her hands. Earl. She stepped forward, holding out the bouquet. I have come to apologize in person without Jack. I accepted the flowers but did not invite her in. Thank you, Samantha, but it will not change anything. Please, she practically begged. At least hear me out. I sighed and stepped aside, letting her into the house. We walked into the living room where there were boxes of books and things everywhere. You are really leaving, she stated, looking around. Yes. In 12 days. I nodded. What did you want to tell me? Samantha. She sat on the edge of the couch, her hands folded in her lap. I realized that Jack and I have not been acting right, especially me. I never appreciated you, never respected you. Been busy with my career, my kids, my parents. She paused. But I want to make it right. I want my children to know their grandfather so we can have a real family. Her words sounded sincere, but her eyes betrayed it. Cold, calculating. I knew that Jack was behind this visit, that they had a strategy Samantha had to play on my paternal feelings to make me feel sorry for him, to make me change my mind. Samantha, I said softly but firmly, I appreciate your visit and your words, but I am afraid it is too late for such a change. I am moving to Portland, starting a new life. You can visit me there if you would like, but my decision about my inheritance still stands. Her face changed instantly, the mask of remorse falling away, giving way to cold fury. You are a selfish old man. You think only of yourself. What about the children? What about their future? Their future depends on you and Jack, I said calmly, on the values you instill in them, the education you give them, on the love you give them, not from the money they might get after I am dead. Hypocrite. Samantha stood up, clenching her fists. You have always been like this. Jack is right. His mother regretted marrying you. Goodbye. Samantha. I stood up, too, and headed for the door. Say hello to the kids. After she left, I stood at the window for a long time, staring out at the street. Part of me still hoped they would understand, realize, change. But deep down, I knew it would not happen. They were too consumed with greed, too used to seeing me only as a source of potential inheritance. The days leading up to the move flew by in a flurry of activity, selling things I did not need, saying goodbye to neighbors, seeing the few friends left in Riverside for the last time. Jack and Samantha kept calling, but less and less frequently. Apparently, they were beginning to realize they were not getting anywhere. The day I left, I walked around the house one last time, saying goodbye to every room, every corner that held memories of happy years with Helen, of Jack's childhood. It was sad to leave the place that had been home for decades, but I did not doubt my decision. Goodbye. Helen, I whispered, standing in our bedroom. I loved you here, and I will love you wherever I go. Margaret was waiting for me in the car. The truck with our belongings had already left the day before. We planned to stop at motel along the way, taking our time, enjoying the road and the freedom. You ready? Margaret asked as I got into the passenger seat. As ready as I will ever be, I replied, looking at the house one last time. The new house in Portland exceeded my expectations. A small but cozy one-story cottage with a terrace garden and mountain views. Just a 10-minute walk from the ocean and 2 blocks from the home of Margaret's sister, Eleanor. A cheerful woman of 78 who took us under her wing from day one. "Welcome to paradise, girls," she exclaimed, welcoming us to our new home with a bottle of champagne. "Here you will be 20 years younger." The first weeks in the new city were full of discoveries. We explored the neighborhood, got to know our neighbors, found our favorite cafes and stores. Eleanor introduced us to her friends, mostly energetic retirees like herself. Among them was Harold Jenkins, a 74-year-old widower and former professor of literature, tall, trim, with a neat gray beard and lively eyes. He reminded me of Helen. The same kindness, the same intelligence, the same sense of humor. "Did you teach history?" he asked the first time we met at Eleanor's barbecue. How interesting. I have always admired historians. You see the world very differently than we humanitarians do. We got to talking and discovered we had a lot in common. A love of classical music and interest in history. A habit of getting up early and enjoying the quiet of the morning. Harold lived alone in a small house near us, read a lot, gardened, and occasionally gave lectures at the local library. "You must come to my next lecture," He invited me. On the influence of Shakespeare, on modern literature. I promise it will not be too boring. I would love to, I agreed, feeling a blush come to my cheeks. Margaret, noticing this, then teased me. Wow, Earl, you seem to have made an impression on the professor. Do not be silly, I said. We were just finding common topics of conversation. But the truth was, I liked Harold not as a potential romantic partner. I still felt like Helen's husband even 12 years after her death, but as a friend, as a conversationalist, as someone who was nice to spend time with. And we began to spend time together, going to concerts in the local park, visiting museums, sometimes just sitting on the terrace of my house, reading books, and occasionally exchanging opinions about what we had read. Jack called less and less often, once a month, sometimes less. The conversations were short, formal. He no longer mentioned the inheritance, apparently having realized the futility of such attempts. Instead, he talked about his work, his children, and sometimes asked how I was doing. I answered politely, but briefly. One day, about 7 months after the move, he asked, "Are you happy there, Dad?" The question took me by surprise with its unexpected sincerity. Yes. Jack, I answered after a pause. I am happy here. Then I am happy for you, he said. And there was no falseness in his voice. Really happy. Maybe something was changing in him. Maybe my absence made him think, but I was under no illusions. Too much water had passed. Too deep a fissure had formed between us. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. I found my place in a new city, in a new life. I volunteered at the local library, joined the gardening club, started taking art lessons. I had always wanted to learn, but never had the time. Margaret also blossomed in Portland, losing weight, getting younger, even having a brief affair with a local boat owner, which was the subject of friendly banter among our new friends. It is never too late to enjoy life, she said, winking. Especially when you are finally free of the burden of the past. I agreed with her. For the first time in years, I felt free from expectations, from disappointment, from the constant pain of unrecognition. I lived in the present without looking back at the past or fearing the future. And then, almost exactly a year after I moved, a letter arrived from Emily. Not an electronic one, but a real paper one in a stamped envelope. I stared at it in surprise, hesitant to open it. Come on. Margaret nudged me, who had stopped by for a cup of coffee. Open it. What could be so scary? I opened the envelope and began to read. Dear Grandpa, I do not know if you will read this letter or throw it away when you see who it is from. I would not be surprised if you did. After everything that has happened between you and our family, you have every reason to ignore any attempt at contact. But I have to write to you. I have to tell you that I realize now how horribly we have all treated you, especially me. I was selfish, rude, ungrateful. I followed my parents' example without thinking about how it hurt you. That birthday, that empty box, I am ashamed to remember it. I was laughing with everyone, taking pictures of your face on my phone, not thinking about the pain I was causing you. I have no excuse. A lot of things have changed since you left. My parents fight all the time. Dad blames Mom for turning him against you. Mom blames him for not being able to convince you to change your will. They think I cannot hear, but the walls in our house are thin. I recently found some old photo albums in the garage, the ones you left behind. There were pictures of your mother when she was still a baby, of you and Grandma, young and happy. I had never seen those pictures before. And in them, my father looks like a completely different man, open, smiling, loving, not the man I know. What happened to us, Grandpa? How did we get like this? I am graduating from high school this year. I am going to college in Seattle to study psychology. I want to understand how relationships work, why we hurt the ones we are supposed to love. I do not know if you can ever forgive me. Forgive us all. But I want you to know that I realize now how wrong we were. And I am sorry. I am truly sorry. If you ever want to get in touch with me, I would be very happy to, but I understand if you do not want anything to do with our family. Love, your granddaughter, Emily. I reread the letter several times, feeling tears come to my eyes. Not tears of grief or resentment, tears of relief. Perhaps not all was lost. Perhaps at least one soul in this family is capable of growth and change. "What is it?" Margaret asked impatiently. I handed her the letter. "Read it yourself." She ran her eyes over the lines quickly, then looked up at me. "Will you answer her?" "Yes." I nodded, but not right away. I need to think about what to say. The next day, Harold and I walked along the beach. I told him about Emily's letter and my mixed feelings. "You know," he said thoughtfully, looking out at the ocean, "forgiveness is an amazing thing. It frees you. Not so much to forgive the person you forgive, but to forgive yourself." "Do you think I should forgive them?" I asked. "I think you already have." He smiled. "Otherwise, this letter would not have touched you so deeply. But forgiveness does not mean going back to the way things were. You can forgive and still set healthy boundaries." He was right. I did forgive them. Not in one moment, but gradually, day by day, finding the joy and peace in my new life that I had been deprived of for so long. But that did not mean I was ready to go back to the way things were. A week later, I wrote a reply to Emily. "Dear Emily, your letter touched me to the core. Thank you for having the courage to write it. I do not hold a grudge against you. I never have. You were a child who followed the example of adults. Yes, it hurt me, but I realized you did not realize what you were doing. I am glad to hear that you went to college, that you chose psychology. It is a noble profession, helping people understand themselves and others. Perhaps your experience, however painful, will be a valuable asset in your future work. What happened to our family? I think about it often. Perhaps we just lost sight of what is really important. Caring, respect, unconditional love. We let the little things, the hurts, the misunderstandings come between us. And then those little things grew into a wall that no one could overcome. I found a new life here in Portland. I have friends, activities that bring me joy. I have finally learned to appreciate myself, my desires, my boundaries. It has been a long journey, but it has been worth it. I am not going back to Riverside. Emily. And my decision regarding the inheritance stands. But that does not mean there cannot be relations between us. If that is what you really want, we can start over on a new basis. No expectations, no commitments, just two people bound by blood and maybe something more. If you ever want to come to Portland, my doors are open to you. I would love to show you around this beautiful city and introduce you to my new friends. You can always call me or write me. Whatever happens next, know that I love you. I always have, and I always will. Warmly, your grandpa, Earl. I sealed the letter, wrote the address, and took it to the post office. I do not know if I will get a reply, if Emily will ever come to visit. It does not matter anymore. What matters is that I am finally at peace with myself, with my past, with my decisions. When I got home, I went out on the terrace with a cup of tea. The day was clear, warm. I could see the mountains in the distance, and to the right. If I looked closely, I could see a strip of ocean. The roses Harold and I had planted a month ago were blooming in the garden. Life went on. A new life I had built on my own, on the ruins of the old one. A life in which I was no longer an empty shell, no longer a shadow, no longer an appendage to other people's expectations. I was Earl Thompson, a 74-year-old man who had finally learned to appreciate himself, who had found the courage to say no to disrespect and neglect, who started over when many in his shoes would have just accepted it. And I was happy, really deeply happy, for the first time in many, many years. And I was happy, really deeply happy, for the first time in many, many years. As the author of this heartfelt story, I cannot help but reflect on the characters and the events that unfolded. Earl Thompson, our resilient protagonist, embodies the quiet strength of those who endure neglect, yet find the courage to reclaim their dignity. His journey from loneliness to self-empowerment is inspiring, showing how years of silent suffering can lead to profound change. Jack and Samantha, sadly, represent the pitfalls of modern life, where ambition and greed overshadow family bonds, turning love into obligation. Their cruelty, especially that empty box prank, highlights the pain of ingratitude. While the grandchildren, Emily and Ethan, offer glimmers of hope, with Emily's letter symbolizing redemption and growth amid toxic influences. Margaret, the loyal friend, stands as a beacon of true companionship, proving that support from chosen family can heal deep wounds. The events, from the humiliating birthday to the bold move to Portland, weave a tapestry of betrayal, awakening, and renewal, reminding us that life's turning points often come from our lowest moments. This story holds immense value, teaching us vital lessons about self-respect and boundaries. It warns against tolerating disrespect, even from loved ones, and emphasizes that true family is built on mutual care, not inheritance or obligation. The human message shines through forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It means freeing yourself to embrace a fuller life. In a world where elderly voices are often silenced, it urges us to cherish our elders, nurture genuine connections, and prioritize emotional wealth over material gain. Ultimately, it celebrates second chances, showing that it is never too late to start anew, to find joy in independence, and to surround yourself with positivity. If this tale touched your heart, please like this video to show your support. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts, perhaps a similar experience or what lesson resonated most with you. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories that explore the depths of human emotion and resilience. Your engagement means the world and helps spread these meaningful messages further. Thank you for listening, and remember, your story matters too.